Hello and welcome to India Reads. My name is Pradeep, and we are reading The Accidental Prime Minister. We have completed 9 chapters, and we're right now on chapter number 10. Let's start. Making Borders Irrelevant. I dream of a day when, while retaining our respective national identities, one can have breakfast in Amritsar, lunch in Lahore, and dinner in Kabul. That's how my forefathers lived. That's how I want our grandchildren to live. Manmohan Singh, FICCI Annual General Meeting, 8 January 2007. The Indian subcontinent was always a crossroads between Asia to its east and Asia to its west. Conquerors, travelers, traders, and teachers set foot or set sail and moved across Asia through India. The Indian cultural and economic footprint extended from the banks of the Mediterranean to the Pacific, from the coasts of East Africa and Arab Persian Gulf to the coasts of Vietnam and Indonesia. India was both enriched and impoverished with such flows of people across the Indus and the Gangetic Plains. It was this vision of India that shaped Dr. Singh's approach to India's relations with its neighbors, including Pakistan, the land of his birth. Partition in 1947 and the creation of Pakistan could never be reversed, but why should political boundaries now come in the way of free movement of today's travelers, traders, and teachers when they had not done so over centuries? He spoke about a subcontinent without borders, or as he put to Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf, where borders are mere lines on paper. The state of India Pakistan relations and the need to find a lasting solution to the problem of Jammu and Kashmir had occupied Dr. Singh's attention for years. His interest in it predated his prime ministership, and he kept himself informed on what was happening in J&K. So it was not surprising that while preparing for his first visit as PM to the UN General Assembly in September 2004, Dr. Singh was devoted Dr. Singh devoted considerable time to his planned meeting with President Pervez Musharraf. To create a favorable environment for the meeting, India took the initiative to announce unilateral liberalization of the visa regime for Pakistani academicians, businessmen, and senior citizens. That some back-channel discussions had already taken place on Kashmir was evident from the fact that President Musharraf made no reference to the troubled issue in his speech. Singh reciprocated this gesture by telling the UN General Assembly that he reaffirmed India's determination to carry forward the dialogue with Pakistan initiated by his predecessor Atal Bihari Vajpayee in January 2004 to a very purposeful and mutually acceptable conclusion. Those statements set the tone for the meeting of the two leaders at New York's Roosevelt Hotel on 24 September 2004. While Dr. Singh drove to the hotel with a delegation that included External Affairs Minister Natwar Singh, the two leaders chose to meet without aides and talked for over an hour. Earlier, it had been decided that the two would not meet the media and only a spokesperson would brief journalists. But as the meeting came to an end, they announced that they would like to jointly address the media. Among 50 to 60 waiting journalists from both countries had to be security checked and allowed into the hotel lobby within minutes. The hotel did not have a suitable conference room, so it was decided that the leaders would stand in a wide corridor outside the room where they met and make a statement. As TV crews set up their cameras, it was left to the MEA spokesperson Natwej Sarna to get a hotel staffer to unscrew the exit sign on the wall so that the two leaders would not be caught on camera standing below it. The two then issued a bland joint statement, hurriedly drafted by the aides, that said that they had agreed that confidence building measures of all categories under discussion between the two governments should be implemented, keeping in mind practical possibilities. It became clear that the two had more wide ranging conversation when, about a month after Musharraf returned home, the Pakistan correspondent of the Tribune reported from Islamabad on 27 October 2004 that in a new formation to resolve the vexed Kashmir issue, President Pervez Musharraf last night suggested that India and Pakistan consider the option of identifying some regions of Kashmir on both sides of the line and control, demilitarize them, and grant them the status of independence or joint control under the UN mandate. The report quoted Pakistan's government-run TV channel PTV to say that Musharraf had said that a solution to the lingering Kashmir problem cannot be found either by insisting on a plebiscite or making LOC line of control into a permanent border. Even though the Indian government rejected the interpretation of the New York conversation, it encouraged a public debate on the pros and cons of Musharraf's thinking. After all, the idea was originally canvassed by none other than Dr. Singh. On the eve of his becoming Prime Minister in May 2004, Dr. Singh told a journalist, Jonathan Power, from the Statesman, in an off the record conversation that Power is published without his permission, sort of secession, sort of redrawing boundaries the Indian establishment can live with anything. Meanwhile, we need soft borders. Then borders are not so important. Enough had happened in the backroom talks between September 2004 and February 2005 for Musharraf to want to carry the conversations forward. He chose to speed up things by publicly expressing his desire to watch the India Pakistan one-day matches scheduled that spring. Musharraf's public solicitation for an invitation from India was met with a stunning silence from New Delhi. After waiting for a couple of days, the Indian media became restive and sought a response. Several journalists called me to find out if the PM was aware of Musharraf's stated desire and whether he would invite the Pakistan Prime Minister to come and watch the match. I walked into the PM's room in South Block and sought an answer. I have been advised that this is not a good time for a visit because the budget session is going on, the PM told me. The Foreign Ministry will inform Pakistan that the visit can take place sometime later. I asked the PM if he and his diplomatic advisors had considered what headline they would get in the morning. Musharraf wants to go to India to watch a cricket match. India says no. The PM laughed and asked, so do you think we should do? You realize if he visits India, it will not be just to watch a cricket match, but for formal discussions. True, I said, but for now, Musharraf was only seeking an invitation to watch a cricket match. It was clear from the PM's demeanor that he was quite willing to invite Musharraf and continue their conversation from where they had left in September 2004. The fact that while we were speaking, he summoned Foreign Secretary Sham Saran and National Security Advisor Narayan. Within minutes, they joined us. Sanjaya says, I must invite Musharraf. He told his two non-plus senior aides who already appeared unhappy to find me present in such a hurriedly convened meeting with the PM. This was, of course, his old tactic of putting his own views into other people's mouth. Those unfamiliar with his style, would offer a counter view, thinking they were responding to a view other than the PM's own. Those who had come to know Dr. Singh well would realize that this was the PM's way of expressing his own view while retaining an exit route. Perhaps both Narayan and Sham understood this, but neither hesitated to disagree with my view. Sham shared Dr. Singh's vision on most foreign policy issues, but on Pakistan he was a hawk and was skeptical as Narayan about Pakistan's readiness to normalize relations with India. We were soon joined by Nair and Pulak, and I was pleased when they both agreed to it with me. The PM returned to Sham and asked him to draft a letter of invitation to Musharraf. The meeting had ended. I was asked not to breathe a word of this plan to the media till the diplomats had done their job of decoding the date and the venue and getting a formal acceptance of the PM's invitation from Islamabad. For 2 days, I heard nothing more about this and had to fob off an eager media which kept me asking, will the PM invite Musharraf? I was told by a colleague that both Sham and Narayan were in discussions with the state governments to figure out which match Musharraf should be invited to, the one in Visakhapatnam or the one in Kochi. I could not believe my ears when I heard this and decided to speak to the PM. I went to 3RCR and told him that the media would view this as an attempt to keep Musharraf away from New Delhi. He hinted at considerable resistance within the government to the idea of Musharraf's visit at the time. The main reason, it seemed, was that it was not a good idea to have such a high profile visit with Parliament in session. Why not downplay the visit by making it semi official and go along with the pretense that he was only being invited to witness a cricket match and nothing else? In Europe, heads of government travel to each other's capitals without too much protocol. Why should there be a joint statement? I argued each time two South Asian heads of government meet. I could see that Dr. Singh was ready and willing to invite Musharraf, and the matter was getting delayed because of the usual bureaucratic processes and diplomatic protocol. I suggested to him that he could use the opportunity provided the following morning when he was scheduled to speak in the Lok Sabha by using his intervention in a parliamentary debate to publicly extend an invitation to the Prime Minister, to President Musharraf. He asked me to give him a draft statement. The next morning, on 10 March 2005, I drove to 3RCR and handed him a draft before he left home. He read it, folded the paper, and placed in his pocket, and as was his wont, saying, let me think about it. Later that morning, I went to the Lok Sabha to hear him speak. He spoke for over half an hour, replying to all the points made by several members in the course of the debate. I waited anxiously to see what he would say when talking about foreign policy. He went through the discussion on foreign policy as well, and finally, when he came to the very end, he put his hand in the pocket and pulled out the folded sheet of paper and read from it. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am happy to inform the honorable members of the House that I have decided to invite President Musharraf to come to India to watch a cricket match between our teams. It is my earnest desire that the people in the neighboring country and their leaders should feel free to visit us whenever they wish to do so, be it to watch a cricket match, be it to do some shopping, be it to meet some friends or family. India is proud to be an open society and an open economy. I do hope that President Musharraf and his family will enjoy their visit to our country. Members of parliament from all across the hall thumped their table in approval. Even before his officials and diplomats had got round to placing a letter of invitation to Musharraf in front of him, the PM had verbally issued that invitation from the floor of the Lok Sabha and had secured instant approval from Parliament. In the officials' gallery, everyone around me, including the NSA, was stunned. Nair turned to me and winked. I walked out quietly and went to the PM's room to watch TV channels splash the breaking news. With the visit scheduled for a little more than a month away in mid April, Dr. Singh moved quickly to take the next steps. On April 4, he announced the setting up of a high-level task force to prepare a plan for the development of Jammu and Kashmir under the chairmanship of C. Rangarajan, chairman of the PM's Economic Advisory Council. The task force members included economists Hasib Drabu, business leader Sunil Mittal, Sunil Munjal, and Analjit Singh, public sector CEOs Musa Raja and T.N. Thakur, and Duvuri Subbarao. He then scheduled for 7 April 2005 the launch of a cross LOC Srinagar Muzaffarabad bus service. On 6 April, terrorists attacked the state tourism office in Srinagar, the place where the new bus service was to be launched. By the end of the day, the national security and intelligence agencies were advising the PM to cancel his visit the next morning to Srinagar. While two terrorists had been killed by security forces, two had escaped. Home Minister Shivraj Patil, Narayan, IB Chief ESI, and Narsimhan and others advised the PM to cancel his trip. Sonia Gandhi was to accompany the PM. She told him that she would go along with him whatever his decision. It was a tiring day. It was a tiring day. The final review meeting ended at 9 p.m. with the PM being advised to cancel his visit. Almost everyone had left the room. Dr. Singh sat pensively with anger and concern writ large on his face. Suddenly he came alive and said, I will go. Officers on their way out of 7 RCR were called back. The PM called Sonia and informed her that he had decided to travel to Srinagar. She endorsed his decision and said that she would travel with him. She too would travel with him. Next morning, the two flew to Srinagar amid tight security and flagged the bus off. This is the first step, Dr. Singh told the crowd that had gathered in the heart of Srinagar on a long road to peace. This act of political courage gave Dr. Singh a huge boost both within the valley and across the country. It set the stage for Musharraf's visit the following week. A major concern for the officials handling the visit was that Musharraf's Delhi visit should not become a repeat of the disastrous Agra summit of July 2001. The general view was that Musharraf had the last laugh and staged a PR coup, leaving the Indian side embarrassed by the outcome. It was too early in Dr. Singh's prime ministerial tenure for such a foreign policy disaster, officials pointed out. While the diplomats did their bit to ensure a positive outcome, I was instructed by the PM to manage the media and prevent an Agra style PR disaster. My biggest concern was that our side should speak in one voice and that our internal differences should not come in the open as those between Vajpayee and Advani did at Agra. I convened and chaired a press briefing at South Block. Every important journalist and writer on foreign affairs and on India Pakistan relations was invited. From the government side, we had Narayanan Nair, Shamsaran, and Shiv Shankar Menon, India's High Commissioner in Pakistan. It was the first time in the PMO that the media advisor had chaired a press briefing and spoke for the PM with all senior officials present. It was a high risk strategy. If my efforts to ensure supportive media coverage failed and Musharraf got away with yet another media coup, I knew all the senior officials at the table would not just blame me but also hang me. As I offered the media the PM's perspective on the Musharraf visit, everyone, including Narayan, made supportive statements. As it happened, I need not have worried. Dr. Singh came out of the April 2005 Musharraf visit both politically and diplomatically stronger. It had the added benefit of making him confident and assertive. After watching the cricket match in Delhi's Firoz Shah Kotla grounds, Dr. Singh and Musharraf went to the Hyderabad house for a formal conversation. Musharraf was in a great mood because Pakistan had got off to a good start. In fact, President, who had apparently been informed by his staff that Pakistan was set to win, which it did in the end, began the conversation saying, Dr. Saib, if you and I decide we can resolve our disputes before lunch and then go back to watch the match. General Sahib, you are a soldier and much younger, replied Dr. Singh to Musharraf. But you must allow for my age. I can only walk step by step. Dr. Singh was socially awkward and shy. He seemed to relax. While Dr. Singh was socially awkward and shy, he seemed to relax in the company of gregarious and outgoing personalities. They would do most of the talking and fill Dr. Singh's silences with remarks that would make the PM laugh and unwind. Musharraf was certainly more talkative than Dr. Singh, as were Hamid Karzai, George Bush, Tony Blair, and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He was never too comfortable with those as reserved as he was, like Gordon Brown and Hu Jintao. The septuagenarian economist and the 61-year-old general walked their talk. Over the next 2 years, they outlined a roadmap for the resolution of the Kashmir issue based on Dr. Singh's famous formulation that borders cannot be changed but they can be made irrelevant. Much of his conceptualization was done secretly through a diplomatic back channel. On the Pakistan side, Musharraf's trusted aide was Tariq Aziz, a former income tax officer who was a personal friend of Musharraf. Musharraf had appointed him the secretary of the NSC. Aziz was a liaison between Musharraf and Vajpayee, keeping in touch with Brajesh Mishra through a mutual friend, the late R.K. Mishra, of the Observer Research Foundation. During the Kargil War, R.K. Mishra and Aziz would meet secretly, exchanging messages between Musharraf and Vajpayee. Mishra also doubled up as Reliance Industries Limited chairman Dhirubhai Ambani's aide, seeking assurances from the Pakistanis that they would not bomb RIL's Jamnagar plant. On the Indian side, Dr. Singh's back channel was former Indian ambassador to Islamabad, Satinder Lamba. Lamba was a highly skilled diplomat who knew how to keep his mouth shut and function below the radar. His meetings at 7 RCR with Dr. Singh were always secret. Any appointment scheduled on the daily program sheet risked becoming public knowledge. Only 14 marked copies were printed and circulated to keep PMO officials, the security and intelligence staff. If the PM wished to keep a meeting secret from any of those 14, then the meetings would never be listed. A further danger was that the enterprising journalists who would manage to find out the PM's program. Therefore, Lamba's meetings with the PM were rarely, if ever, listed. Who was Lamba? Indian ambassador to Islamabad, Satinder Lamba. Lamba would meet Aziz in Pakistan, in India, and in third places like Dubai. He was assisted by PM's second personal secretary, Jaideep Sarkar, who was his note taker. Whenever Jaideep took leave, reporting sick, or leaving word that he was helping his son prepare for the exams, I knew he was away with Lamba. The Lamba Aziz back channel helped prepare the groundwork for summit meetings and develop the framework agreement that Dr. Singh hoped to sign with Musharraf. The first step they both agreed would be to make the LOC just a line on the map. Towards the end, it was decided that cross LOC travel and trade would be freed up. This would mean that for the people of Kashmir now living on either side of the LOC, life would return to pre-partition era, where they could travel to each other's villages with ease, and normal life would go on as if there was no border. The second step would be to strengthen local self-government on both sides of the LOC so that people of Kashmir elected their own government if necessary under international supervision. The third step would be the trickiest. This would entail the creation of a joint or cooperative institutions under charge of Kashmiri leaders to coordinate policies on matters of common interest. Everything except foreign policy and defense would be locally and jointly administered, and these two would be handled by New Delhi and Islamabad, respectively. If all this worked and peace was restored, then the fourth and the fifth final element of the peace formula would be agreed withdrawal of troops on both sides. Dr. Singh followed up on this meeting with a visit to the Siachen Glacier in June 2005, where he declared that the Siachen would be a symbol of peace rather than of conflict. It was an optimistic thing to say amid the snowy wastes where India and Pakistan both laying claim to the same territory, having fought intermittently since 1984. Reassuring that listening that Reassuring the listening men in uniform, he added that there was no question of redrawing boundaries. In search of peace, the existing boundaries cannot be changed because they are for our protection and related to our honor. While there has been some criticism of Dr. Singh's Siachal proposal in India, that the fact that he pursued his idea only after consulting every retired army general who had actually commanded the troops at Siachal. Each one of them had been witness to the tragic deaths of the soldiers and the huge expense of the operation. All of them supported Dr. Singh's decision to find a final solution to the problem of Kashmir and Siachen. Dr. Singh wanted President Musharraf to own and propagate the Kashmir peace formula. He was quite willing to sell this as a Musharraf formula rather than a Manmohan Musharraf formula, and this is how it had come to be known. He believed that at a time that he believed at the time that it would be tougher for Musharraf to sell the peace formula in Pakistan than for him to get a majority opinion in India on his side. While the peace formula would give a special status to Kashmir, it would not alter the ground reality with the Kashmir on this side of the LOC becoming a part of India and the region on the other side become remaining a part of Pakistan. In Pakistan, Musharraf would have to deal with political parties, religious groups, and the army. Dr. Singh felt that in India there would be a wider constituency of support, including the large section of the Congress, several regional parties, and the left. He thought the only real opposition would come from the BJP. This was not the way it turned out to be. What Dr. Singh perhaps underestimated was the likely resistance from within his own party. Pranab and Antony, as successive defense ministers in UPA 1, were reportedly not enthusiastic about a deal on Siachal, though Sonia had blessed the police formula. The armed forces were ambivalent, with retired generals who had served in Siachal favoring a deal to end the agony of the troops serving in that unhospitable terrain, but serving generals not willing to trust Pakistan on a deal. The warm and friendly person Anthony played straight but was a tough customer to handle. I had a good personal equation with him because he knew I had been a student of the distinguished Kerala Professor K.N. Raj. In fact, being aware that I got married in Thiruvananthapuram, he would always refer to me as the son-in-law of Kerala. When it came to the policy, personal warmth mattered little. Anthony was politically conservative and risk averse and depended excessively on the advice of IAS officers inexperienced in strategic policy and defense. His stewardship of the defense ministry had been widely criticized for this reason. To add to this, Dr. Singh had also to contend with the declining quality of the defense services leadership, which had since become all too visible. For me, the first sign of this decline was evident in the manner in which Army Chief General J.J. Singh dealt with the Siachal issue. In closed door briefings, the general would say that a deal with Pakistan was doable, but in public he would back Antony when the defense minister chose not to back the PM. Even in PM Narasimha Rao's cabinet, Antony was a critic of the government's economic policies. With his left of center background from his time in Kerala politics, Antony was an old style congressman critical of both economic and foreign policy initiatives of the Rao government and now of Dr. Singh's. While he and indeed Sonia supported Dr. Singh's initiative to normalize relations with Pakistan, Antony was skeptical about Dr. Singh's Siachal initiative. I was never sure whether Antony's hawkish stance was because he genuinely disagreed with the Siachal initiative or whether he was merely towing a Nehru Gandhi family line that would not allow Dr. Singh to be the one finally normalizing relations with Pakistan. After all, the Kashmir problem had its roots in Nehru's policies. Both Indira and Rajiv tried to solve and failed. Would Sonia, who backed the peace initiative with Pakistan, finally allow Dr. Singh to, in fact, resolve the legacy of history and enter the history books? I remained a skeptic. I felt that she would want to wait till Rahul became a PM so that he could claim credit. My skepticism did not, however, blunt Dr. Singh's enthusiasm to keep trying for a breakthrough. Events on the ground did. Religious extremism in both countries were opposed to this process of normalization. A key objective of the terror attacks that followed both in Kashmir and different parts of India was to ignite communal passions and prevent a meeting of minds between India and Pakistan on Kashmir. On October 29, 2005, Delhi was rocked by a series of bomb blasts. Crowded markets in Sarojini Nagar and Paharganj were made targets. Dr. Singh was in Agartala during the day and was scheduled to spend the night in Kolkata, returning the next day to Delhi. Through the day, he had been preoccupied with the revelations of the Volcker Committee report on the oil for food scam reported in the Hindu. On the flight to Agartala, Dr. Singh read the Hindu report in full and called me into his cabin to discuss the fallout. During lunch, he watched the media briefing by Congress spokesperson Ambika Soni on TV. Ambika carefully defended only the Congress party and said that Natwar would speak for himself. Dr. Singh viewed this as a party abandoning Natwar. Foreseeing the inevitable on his flight back from Agartala, he asked me for names for potential foreign ministers. We shortlisted Pranab Mukherjee, Karan Singh, and S.M. Krishna for the job. Even as I was putting forward the pros and cons of the various names, the SPG chief Bharat Vanshu came into our cabin with the news of bomb blast in Delhi. On hearing this, Dr. Singh decided that we would fly directly to Delhi with only a technical halt at Kolkata airport. That night, he made an extempore statement on television linking the blast to a deliberate attempt to spread disaffection among the communities during the forthcoming festival season. After every such attack, the priority was to prevent a communal conflict. He wanted to ensure that what had happened in Godhra in 2002 would never happen again. On this score, the government succeeded. However, such terror attacks did manage to stall and delay the process of normalization of India-Pakistan relations. Every time the process was disrupted, Dr. Singh would try and pick up the threads and move forward after a decent interval. In March 2006, a year after his initial efforts with Musharraf and after the impact of the Delhi blast had been politically absorbed, and when many had assumed that the Kashmir agenda was off the PM's table, Dr. Singh tried it again. Addressing a huge rally in Kashmir, Dr. Singh spoke in Punjabi. It was intended that his speech telecast live from Amritsar be heard loud and clear in Lahore. While Dr. Singh was addressing the rally, I was in Delhi ensuring that all national TV channels were relaying the speech live and reporting the key message. Delivering his boldest speech to the date on the issue of Kashmir and India Pakistan relations, that too in Punjabi at a mass rally, Dr. Singh said that both sides should open a dialogue with the people in their respective areas of control to improve the quality of governance and to give the people on both sides a greater chance in leading a life of dignity and self respect. He then went on to add, I have often said that borders cannot be redrawn, but we can work towards making them irrelevant, towards making them just lines on the map. Both people on both sides of the LOC should be able to move more freely and trade with one another. I also envisage a situation where two parts of Jammu and Kashmir can, with active encouragement of the governments of India and Pakistan, work out cooperative consultative mechanisms so as to maximize the gains of cooperation in solving problems of social and economic development of the region. This was the clearest exposition of the Manmohan Musharraf formula made by Dr. Singh himself. The statement was heard around the world by the time the two leaders met again in Havana in September 2006 on the sidelines of the summit of the non aligned movement. The bilateral engagement process had survived more terror attacks, the most recent one being Mumbai in July 2006. Arriving in Havana on the afternoon of 14 September 2006, both Pulak and I stepped out of the hotel in search of Cuban cigars. After walking through several narrow lanes, we discovered the Havana black market for cohibas. The price for a foreigner has to pay for a cigar in a garment shop in Havana was no different from what a duty-free shops in Europe charge. But in the back alleys of Havana, one could get the genuine stuff for a tenth of the price. We would have asked the Indian ambassador to get us a box of cigars, but we chose to be adventurous. Laden with our loot of low-cost cohibas, we went to the El Floridita, Ernest Hemingway's favorite bar for mojitos. After imbibing several rounds with Indian journalists who had accompanied the PM to Cuba, Pulak and I returned to our hotel. As we entered the lobby, the SPG officer informed me that the PM wanted to see me. I rushed to my room, brushed my teeth, dabbed on some cologne, and went to his suite. He was seated there with Narayanan and Shiv Shankar Menon. Dr. Singh showed me the draft joint statement that he and Musharraf would issue the next day after their meeting. Shiv Shankar had drafted the statement along with his counterparts in the Pakistan Foreign Office and brought in from Islamabad to the PM for his approval. I read through the text. The draft proposed a bilateral anti-terrorism institutional mechanism to identify and implement counter-terrorism initiatives and investigations. What do you think will be the reaction at home to this idea? Dr. Singh asked me. It seemed to me that the three had already discussed this at length and there was a difference of opinion between Narayan and Shiv Shankar. Narayan looked serious and glum, always a bad sign. Shiv Shankar, smooth and seasoned diplomat as he was, revealed no emotion. Clearly, this was his draft, and Narayan had reservations about it. I knew I had been summoned to take sides and tilt the balance in direction the PM wanted. The BJP would criticize it, I told him, but the Congress party and the left would back him. He needed their support to be able to move forward on other fronts. Senior Congress leaders remained divided on Dr. Singh's policy towards Pakistan, but they seem to have Sonia's support. But he seemed to have Sonia's support. There was, however, no doubt that the left front fully backed his peace initiatives. Earning occasional praise from the left was politically useful, but especially since they were so critical of his policy towards the US, I assured Dr. Singh that we would be able to manage the political fallout. He seemed satisfied with my intervention. He turned to Menon and instructed him to go ahead and finalize the joint statement with Pakistani counterparts. Narayanan was by now looking very unhappy. As we all walked out of the room, Narayan grabbed my hand firmly and said, You have stabbed me in the back. Not true, I said calmly, with a smile, not wanting to appear intimidated. I disagreed with you in your presence. You can, of course, accuse me of stabbing you in the front. The mojito was still working. Dr. Singh met Musharraf in a villa that had been made available by the Cubans for this summit meeting. Musharraf, like many other heads of the government, usually appeared more relaxed and socially at ease than Dr. Singh. In Havana, however, both seemed at ease and stuck up a conversation between themselves while members of both delegations stood and watched. Suddenly, it was as if it was pre-planned. Suddenly, as if it was pre-planned, the two walked together into the adjacent room, and the SPG closed the door. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Khurshid Kasuri and Narayan looked at each other in bewilderment. It was obvious that they had been kept out. While Narayan remained standing where he was, Kasuri walked briskly to the door of the adjacent room. The SPG guard told him that he had been instructed not to let anyone in. The two delegations then sat down for tea and biscuits. The Indian and Pakistani officials got along famously in such settings. There are many subjects to talk about: cricket, Bollywood, the latest fancy restaurant in Lahore or Delhi that serves the best kebabs or biryani, the welfare of common friends and their children. For almost an hour, Dr. Singh and Musharraf were closeted in the room while the two delegations socialized. Narayan's discomfiture was palpable, but Kasuri, who knew who his boss was, had regained his poise and now seemed utterly indifferent. The idea of a joint terror mechanism came in for considerable criticism, especially from the BJP. I had to devote considerable time in ensuring that the media backed the PM, especially because several retired diplomats and for members of India's intelligence and security agencies issued a statement criticizing the PM. Quiet conversations with a few editors hinting to them that this was the beginning of a more substantial movement forward with Pakistan helped. The joint statement had gone further than any then in setting out the agenda for bilateral talks and agreements. Importantly, it called for an early solution to the Siachal issue and for an agreement between experts on coordinates for a joint survey of Sir Creek and the adjoining area without any prejudice to each other's position on the issue. It said the survey should commence on November 2006. The experts should start discussions on maritime boundaries. Sir Creek is a disputed strip of water in the Rann of Kutch. The two sides also agreed to facilitate implementation of agreements and understandings already reached on confidence building measures relating to the LOC between India and Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir, including the bus services, crossing points, and truck service. In on 20 December Dr. Singh went back to Amritsar to address yet another public meeting. He spoke again in Punjabi and explained at length how he had been trying to improve relations with Pakistan because the destinies of the two nations are linked. He did not want India to be weighed down by the past but think of its future and move forward. He then made bold to talk of his vision, a rare personalization of policy by the reticent Dr. Singh. I too have a vision regarding India and Pakistan. I earnestly hope that the relations between our two countries become so friendly that we generate such an atmosphere of trust between each other that the two nations would be able to agree on the treaty of peace, security, and friendship. I am sure that we can overcome all hurdles in our path and realize such a treaty. This will become the instrument for realizing our collective destiny and the basis for enduring peace and prosperity in the region. After Indira Gandhi met Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in Simla in 1972, this was the first time an Indian Prime Minister had taken the step of offering a treaty of peace, friendship, and security to Pakistan. Events, however, overtook the two leaders. Musharraf found himself embroiled in domestic political trouble. His problems with Pakistan's judiciary threw the country into turmoil. By the first quarter of 2007, Musharraf's regime became weaker, making Dr. Singh cautious. By mid 2007, the bilateral process he had initiated came to a grinding halt as Musharraf's political stock went down. In September 2006, Dr. Singh chose not to go to New York to attend the UN General Assembly. India waited to see what would happen to President Musharraf before reviving the dialogue process. While keeping in touch with Benazir Bhutto, who had indicated her support for the Manmohan Musharraf formula. By the end of 2007, Benazir Bhutto had been killed by assassin's bullet. The news of Benazir's assassination reached Dr. Singh at the Raj Bhavan in Goa. He was crestfallen. Benazir was privy to his consultations with Musharraf, and he was confident that she would back his effort and extend the required popular support to their plans. He spent the entire evening watching television reportage on the assassination. By the end of 2008, Musharraf's rule had ended and a new regime was elected to office. The Manmohan Musharraf formula went out of play and had been waiting since then and has been waiting since then to be resurrected. Over the years, Dr. Singh had repeatedly articulated his vision of a subcontinent of peace. When he welcomed Musharraf at a banquet in his honor in April 2005, it was with an eloquent dinner speech delivered with raw emotion. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can move, we can build a more secure future, a future that generates people's trust and confidence in the political leadership in South Asia. We must find practical ways and measures to resolve all outstanding issues between us in a reasonable, pragmatic manner, cognizant of ground realities. Our people and our common destiny urge us to make the earnest attempt to find a lasting solution to all issues. In a globalizing and increasingly integrated world, borders have lost meaning for much of the world. The journey of peace must be based on a step by step approach, but the road must be traveled. As an ancient saying goes, a road is made by walking. Dr. Singh was convinced that the destiny was on India's side, and India's rise as the world's largest democracy and an economic power would be only slowed down by an unsettled neighborhood. The subcontinent had to rise together, he felt. He wanted India's rise to be viewed as a win win game rather than a zero sum game by its neighbors. He felt that they too should benefit from it, recognizing that they might be able to slow down India with their tactics, but they would never be able to stop India's resurgence. That is why he persisted with his efforts against all odds and chose to pick up the threads with Musharraf's successor as President Asif Zardari and Prime Minister Syed Yusuf Raza Gilani. In the face of the gravest provocations India had faced, the terror attacks in Mumbai in November 2008. After his impressive victory in the 2009 elections, Dr. Singh assumed that he had the political space to take forward his dialogue with Pakistan and wrap up the deal he was on the verge of striking with Musharraf, with the general's democratically elected successors. After all, he had got Benazir's support before her death, and now her husband was the president. His meeting with Zardari in June 2009 on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperative Organization meeting in Yekaterinburg, Russia, was a non-starter. Since this was the first time with a Pakistan leader after November 2008 attacks in Mumbai, he was, however, better prepared for his dialogue a month later with President Gilani at Sharm el Sheikh on the sidelines of a summit meeting of the non-allied movement. I met Dr. Singh 2 days before he was due to fly to Sharm el Sheikh. After we discussed my plans to return to India from Singapore, where I was then living, he asked me what I thought he should say to Prime Minister Gilani. I felt he ought not to have started the second term with a focus on Pakistan. Let the Zardari Gilani team decide, I suggested, feeling that he should focus on the economy for at least the first 6 months. The global economy was still in choppy waters. While the G20 initiatives had calmed the markets and restored some stability, the outlook was still negative. I felt that he should use his impressive victory to push for reforms at home while bringing the fiscal deficit down, but he seemed keen on taking the dialogue with Pakistan forward. With the nuclear deal done, normalizing relationship with Pakistan remained his second major policy preoccupation. Speculation about a change of leadership midway through the second term with Rahul taking charge may have also lent some urgency to the agenda. Who knew how long he would remain PM? In the event, the keenness seemed to have been responsible for his agreeing to refer to Balochistan in the apparent concession to Pakistan. In the joint statement, he hurriedly agreed issued with Gilani. The Congress party quickly rubbished the controversial statement, even though Dr. Singh defended it twice in Parliament during the course of the month. Despite criticisms from his own party, he never gave up hope of using the Thimphu SARC summit in April 2010 to impart momentum to the dialogue process. Within months, he was enveloped by political problems at home and he never recovered from them to be able to return to the historic agenda that he had so eagerly set for himself and so passionately pursued. He could not even imagine to manage to visit his birthplace at Ga. Not completing the process he began will surely remain his greatest regret. However, whenever the two countries do find a lasting solution to their dispute, I have little doubt that it will be on the lines that Dr. Singh had envisioned with Musharraf. With that, we come to the end of chapter 10. This chapter is all about Pakistan and the relationship or the working that Manmohan had with the President Musharraf. It all started with Musharraf sending overtures to India, saying that he wanted to attend the India Pakistan cricket match in India. The PMO did not heed to this for a few days, and Baru got a little anxious because the media was asking questions. Subsequently, he kind of hinted to the PM that there was no harm in the PM coming and attending a cricket match. Manmohan Singh said that obviously he does not want to just attend a cricket match. Baru said, yes, we know that's true, but we can handle it in our terms. And uh, obviously, the foreign ministry was not keen that this happens. So uh, Baru gave a shortcut to Manmohan, who kind of announced it in the floor of the Lok Sabha that he would be inviting Musharraf and his family to come and watch, and everybody from Pakistan should be able to come and visit their relatives in India, should be able to do their trade, and India was an open economy, and uh, the doors should be open for Pakistan. Subsequently, obviously, this was not just the match was just the foreground, and instead of Vizag or Kochi, where they had initially planned uh, for Musharraf to watch the match, it turned out to be Delhi. And in Delhi, during after spending some time in the ground, Musharraf and Manmohan obviously went back to the room, and they had a fairly lengthy discussions. There were a doctrine of 3 or 4 points that were put together, which included opening up the borders for people from both sides, demilitarizing an area where people could travel to each other, cross the border to each other's zones, do trade, and have people to people relationships. And the third point was to elect representatives in both the regions and ensure the prosperity of both the Kashmirs. Now, uh, this is the plan that they had. Obviously, it did not work out through. They could not take it through and through, because over a period of time, Musharraf was not able to continue his position in Pakistan, and Manmohan's issues with the economy also kept coming down. Manmohan was consistent with this, irrespective of the attacks that happened in Mumbai in 2006. Uh, he was committed to ensuring peace in both countries, or co- committed to building relationships. His dream was obviously to go back to his hometown and visit his ancestral village in Gah in Pakistan once, but that never happened. There is also mention of his infamous or famous, rather actually infamous statement in Sharm el Sheikh, which was hurriedly put together, and that only captures the last paragraph or the last part of this chapter. By then, it was obvious that Sanjaya had moved on, and he was working in Singapore. One important aspect from this chapter, which I should point out, was the statement both made together at Cuba, where both Musharraf and Manmohan took took the step of uh, 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 took the charge on their own, and that kind of set the basis for the Manmohan Musharraf doctrine. Subsequently, of course, even after Musharraf left, there was Manmohan was committed to the cause, and he kept his line open with Benazir. After Benazir was assassinated, he kept his line open to Benazir's husband, who became the president. But there were issues in the economy in India also, and therefore this process kind of fizzled out. Sanjaya concludes the chapter by saying that whenever it will happen, whenever the process of restoring peace will happen, it would be definitely in the lines of what was envisaged in the Manmohan Musharraf doctrine. Yeah, with this, we come to the end of this chapter. I will see you soon with yet another chapter. Thank you. Bye.